So let's get started, beginning with the core basis of ABA. Now, like I mentioned before, the core basis of ABA is actually operant conditioning, where consequences have an effect on behavior. For example, if a child is crying or throwing a tantrum, they might be given the iPad to calm them down.
Okay, iPad time is all finished.
No!
You can have your iPad later. Okay. One more minute, okay? Just one more minute.
But by getting the iPad, the child has learned, hey, my tantrum actually works, and ends up doing that more in the future when they want the iPad. Hence, the consequence of getting the iPad had an effect on increasing that crying or tantrum behavior. Now, it's important to remember that a consequence can either be positive or negative. And positive here does not mean positive good and negative bad. Think of it as positive consequence like adding something on, and negative consequence as taking something away. Sort of like the positive and negative ions in a battery or a maths equation. A positive consequence can be giving a child the iPad when he or she is crying. That's adding something on, plus you add to it. Whereas a negative consequence is when you take the iPad away when they start to do a tantrum. That's a negative, as in minus, and taking something away. So let's talk about positive consequences first. The general idea is that when a behavior is followed by a positive consequence, that behavior will increase. This includes desired as well as undesired behaviors. In other words, the behaviors that we want to increase as well as the behaviors that we don't want to increase. Let's take a look at this scenario.
Cookie.
Okay, sure. Nice asking. Here you go. Just one, okay?
Pop quiz. In scenario 1, what was the behavior? Asking mom for cookies, tapping mom's shoulder, hitting mom, or crying for cookies? That's right. He asked mom nicely for the cookies using his words. Was it a desired or undesired behavior? In this case, it was a desired behavior, unless you're trying to keep your child from sugar. What was the consequence of the behavior? Mom gave him the cookies, mom ate all the cookies, mom told him to wait for the cookies, or mom hid the cookies in a cupboard. Awesome! Mom gave him the cookies for using nice words. Was the consequence positive, adding something on, or negative, taking something away? You're right. The consequence was positive because mom added something on, cookies. Will the behavior increase or decrease? The behavior asking nicely for cookies will increase, meaning that the next time he wants cookies, he's more likely to ask for it with his words. The behavior of eating more cookies might also increase, so look out for that. Now let's look at scenario 2.
Mommy, look! Mommy!
What do you want? I'm on the phone right now.
Okay.
Okay, very nice.
Okay, in scenario 2, what was the behavior? Playing in his room by himself, tapping mom's shoulder and waiting patiently, repeating mom's name again and again, or following mom everywhere. Quite clearly, Joshua's excited to tell mom something and is repeating her name again and again. Was it a desired or undesired behavior? This would be an undesired behavior because he'll be disturbing mom while she's on the phone. What was the consequence to the behavior? Mom walked away and continued her phone call. Mom told him, shh. Mom ended the call, or mom scolded him for interrupting her. That's right. Mom turned around and scolded him for interrupting her while she was in the middle of a call. Was the consequence positive, adding something on, or negative, taking something away? The consequence was positive, not negative, even if mom was scolding him. Remember, positive doesn't always mean good. Mom was adding something on, and that something was her attention. Now, will the behavior increase or decrease? Increase. Now again, even though it seems like he just got scolded for interrupting Mom, at the end of the day, he got her attention, didn't he? Which was what he wanted. So likely chances Joshua has learned that it's acceptable to interrupt Mom like that every time he wants her attention.
Now we need to quickly talk about something before we move on. Giving attention to a child also includes scolding or punishments like hitting, threatening, or even giving them a very firm or angry look. You might think that's actually scolding, it's actually sort of like negative, and shouldn't the child get scared and the behavior decrease, not increase? Now, in some cases, punishment may seem to reduce the behavior temporarily, but we strongly discourage against this because many children with autism can't tell the difference between positive attention and kind of like scolding attention. In other words, any attention is attention to them. And so they actually persist in the behavior even after so-called being punished. So remember, a positive consequence means adding something or giving something to the child, which still increases the behavior, whether it's a desired or undesired behavior. Now, let's talk about negative consequences. Negative consequences, again, does not mean negative as in bad or punishing your child. It just means the removal of an item or taking something away. When a behavior is followed by a negative consequence, we would expect that behavior to decrease. Let's look at this third scenario.
In scenario 3, what was the behavior? Joshua hammers and nails with a hammer, Joshua hits Mom with a plastic hammer, Joshua invites Mom to play with him, or Joshua cleans up his toys. Quite obviously, Joshua thinks it's funny hitting Mom with a plastic hammer. Was it a desired or undesired behavior? This would definitely be an undesired behavior you don't want to encourage. What was the consequence of the behavior? Mom bopped him back with the hammer? Mom walked away? Mom took his hammer away? Or Mom told him to stop doing that? You're right. Cool as you please, Mom took the hammer away. She was careful not to show too big a reaction on her face just in case Joshua was looking for that. Was the consequence positive, adding something on, or negative, taking something away? This was a negative consequence because Mom took Joshua's hammer away. Will the behavior increase or decrease? We would predict the behavior would decrease because not only was Joshua's hammer taken away, he didn't even get to see Mom react the way he was hoping. Now let's look at our last scenario. Okay, in scenario 4, what was the behavior? Joshua returns with the hammer and goes at Mom again. Joshua shouts Mom's name again and again. Joshua taps Mom's shoulder and waits for her. Or Joshua watches TV. Compared to scenario 2, we see a much more polite Joshua trying to get Mom's attention very appropriately. Was it a desired or undesired behavior? We would usually consider this to be a desired behavior compared to shouting Mom's name again and again. What was the consequence of the behavior? Mom ignored him and walked away. Mom told him to stop tapping her shoulder. Mom scolded him for interrupting her. Or Mom hung up the call and played with him. You're absolutely right. Mom walked away and ignored his behavior of tapping her shoulder for her attention. Was the consequence positive, adding something on, or negative, taking something away? This was a negative consequence because Mom did take something away, her attention. Will the behavior increase or decrease? We will predict Joshua's behavior tapping on Mom's shoulder will decrease in the future because he learned it simply didn't work. Maybe he might go back to shouting her name.
So let's recap. When a behavior happens, if a child is given a positive consequence, that behavior will likely increase. And when a behavior happens, if a child is given a negative consequence, meaning the removal of something, that behavior will likely decrease. Now, I know what some of you may be thinking. This seems a little bit too simple, almost like training a child. Is it even natural for children to learn this way? It just sounds too simplistic. Well, first of all, let's remember this series is meant to be a simplified version of ABA. There's definitely way more to it that we're not covering in all these short lessons. But secondly, even though it is a simplified version of ABA, if we think about it, we actually use ABA in our lives every single day. For example, if we go to work, we're paid a salary, positive consequence, which likely increases our behavior of continuing to work. Now, if we don't go to work, we could get fired and lose our salary, a negative consequence, and the behavior of going to work decreases, also because you don't have a job anymore. So when we drive safely on the road, the consequence is we get to our location safely, positive consequence, which increases the behavior of us driving safely. But if we choose to decide to drive recklessly, the consequence is possibly getting a ticket, meaning the removal of money from you, a negative consequence, which should decrease the behavior of driving recklessly, hopefully. So now that we have covered the core basis of ABA, which is operant conditioning, now it's your turn. We would like you to try to practice this strategy at home. So the next time your child does something you want them to do, like use their words, talk nicely, try giving them attention, praising them, or rewarding them with their preferred toy or food or reinforcement. Then if they're doing something you don't want them to do, like throwing a tantrum for more screen time, try your best to walk away from the situation and don't give attention to that tantrum behavior. Just so you know, you might find the behavior getting worse initially instead of better. This is to be expected as it actually proves that what you're doing is working and the behavior will get better with that consistent practice. We will actually cover this in our next unit on managing challenging behaviors. Finally, with everything you will learn in Autism at Home, we don't expect to see the changes overnight. Consistency is really key in teaching behaviors you want and reducing the behaviors you don't want. We at EAP wish you the very best.